What is the dumbest way the popular kid f***ed up their life? Two of them decided to take hunting rifles and shoot several rounds into the principal's house at night, thinking the police wouldn't catch them and they would just not follow through with a possible attempted. Story 2. Didn't exactly duck up his life, but he managed to put two brand new Audi A8s into the same telephone pole outside of school. Second time, we all stuck around in the school parking lot to witness the aftermath. His dad was apocalyptic. "You hit the same ducking pole, how? How?" He got a used banana yellow wagon after that. It was hilarious. Story 3. Went to a house party shortly after grad, got kicked out for being douchebags, went back to the party and beat the host, petitioned for a conditional release so they could spend Christmas with family, completely normal crap. Story 4. Kid was kind of smart, but an excellent multi-sport athlete. He had a full baseball scholarship lined up for a state school. The summer after senior year at a party, he got drunk, picked a fight, and got his knees broken. Don't know what happened to him, but I know he didn't go to college. Story 5. He dropped out of high school, went to jail, then got his crap together and went back to school. He is now a math teacher at a prestigious high school. Story 6. Took pictures of himself getting blowjob from the football coach's daughter and slipped a copy under the coach's office door as revenge for some slight against him. He was one of the top football players. He was dumb enough to think the coach's daughter wouldn't say who it was in the picture. Of course she told, and of course he knew, and of course he was kicked off the team. Few months of disciplinary actions after because he sort of spiraled and he was sent to one of those schools for people with difficulty functioning in normal schools. I don't know if it ruined his life, but it ruined his trajectory, and he wound up dropping out of the local community college instead of going off to Florida State like he had planned. Story 7. They poured some chemicals on the football field to spell out our graduation year for a senior prank. It killed the grass and ruined the soil under it. The grass and soil on a football field are specific and expensive. It cost tens of thousands of dollars to repair it on such short notice. The school wanted to be lenient. However, the insurance company required them to get the police involved to cover the claim, so they were arrested. Story 8. Had keks with the German foreign exchange student on the principal's desk during a pep rally. Instant expulsion. Exchange student was sent back to Germany. In his defense, it was consensual, and she was devastatingly attractive. Story 9. He and 3 of his buddies got drunk at a parking lot hangout after practice, drove home, and their car went off the side of a bridge into the river below, and all 4 of them died. Story 10. 4 of them in a car. Driver going very fast on an expressway late at night. Lost control of the vehicle and flipped it, ejecting 3 of them not wearing a seatbelt. Driver got rolled over by the car and was die. Second was die from the injuries. Third had severe brain damage and requires assistance until his dying day. 1 passenger was wearing a seatbelt and left with minor injuries except the trauma of watching 2 of his friends die and 1 of his friends become severely disabled. Edit. Many of you have asked where this was. It was upstate NY. I don't remember the year, but at least 15 years ago. Given how many of you asked where it was or shared similar stories, I think the overall theme here is wear the seatbelt every time. Story 11. Full ride for football at any school you can name. Decides to rob a Walgreens with his buddies one Friday night. He lost everything. I saw him working at McDonald's a few years later. Story 12. Went to jail for speed racing his barely modified 00 Ford Taurus with the car loaded to the brim with illegal substances. Don't be high on your own supply, kids. Story 13. He didn't become a pro baseball player like he told everyone he would because he partied too much and in turn became the meanest piece of crap ever. Anytime you would see him, he would bully the duck out of anyone he ran into from HS at bars to make himself still feel cool. Just a side note, he would mime playing baseball while you spoke to him the entire time. He got married and cheated on her repeatedly with strippers. When she found out and was planning to divorce him, he said he'd beat her up if she did. Story 14. He decided it was a good idea to get high on pills and go for a drive. He ran over a lady and her dog. He left his car and called the police to say that the car was stolen by a black guy. After they found the car in the accident, they called him into the station for a talk. He went up to the police station with the keys in his pocket. Story 15. Guy had a telephone pole fall on his car a couple of years after high school. Instead of calling to have it removed, he and a friend tried to remove it themselves. The guy ended up getting crushed. Extremely tragic, but also extremely stupid. Story 16. This kid wasn't necessarily popular, but he was on the verge. He wanted nothing more in the world than to be on our high school's cross-country team. He just didn't have the chops for it. He'd practice and try out repeatedly, but could never quite make the cut. Everybody knew about his desire to be on the team, and I think most of us were pulling for him because he had the heart, just not the legs. Anyway, one day in gym class, we were having a fitness test in which we were to run laps around the outer perimeter of our school and complete as many laps as possible. Most of us dropped out after a lap or two and went to sit on the bleachers. There were a bunch of cross-country kids, though, who had taken this as a challenge and were running seemingly endless laps. Not quite popular kid figured that if he could keep up with those guys, he'd show that he deserved to be on the team. Lap after lap, he hung right at the back of their pack, never catching up, but never falling completely away either. The large group of us who had already given up and were sitting on the bleachers saw this, and we all started rooting for this kid and watching closely. As the pack passed our bleachers on yet another lap, the kid following behind visibly crapped his pants. Turds poured from the leg holes of his gym shorts and onto the pavement as we all watched in horror. The kid just kept running. On the next lap, our gym teacher, who fancied himself a drill sergeant, flagged the kid down, chewed his ass, and made him clean up the turds as we all sat there wishing for an unexpected asteroid strike to put us out of collective misery. His popularity never recovered. He never ran a single meter for our cross-country team. If anybody wants to make a Rudy-esque film out of this, hit me up and I'll fill in the blanks. Story 17. He failed out of college during his senior year, got hooked on illegal substances, was a deadbeat dad, did more illegal substances, then finally got clean, went back and finished college. Now is an illegal substance counselor and reconnected with his kids. Ducking strong work dough. Story 18. Got addicted to illegal substances. Rich parents got him out. Rehab, then got him a lucrative job that needs no qualification. Now he is still in media, well paid, enough that he became a functioning illegal substance addict. Some people have everything handed to them. They can't even duck up properly. Story 19. Illegal substances. From what I understand, she has a couple kids with different daddies. The dads have full custody of her kids. I see her mugshot in the local paper every once in a while because she is in and out of jail. The last I heard, she was living in a dilapidated camper in a trailer park. Unbelievable how people can just absolutely duck themselves. Story 20. Got suspended for sogrugzing really dumb, so he and a couple buddies tried to burn down our vice principal's house. Got the address wrong and almost burned another house. Story 21. Broke into our old high school to drink on the roof and destroyed students' artwork. One was actively in the military and the other is now law enforcement. Story 22. I had a friend who was a straight-A student. Everyone loved him and he came from a good middle-class family. His day was a solicitor, I think. Never put a foot out of line. One day, he came in and set off half a dozen smoke bombs in maths class. Turns out his dad was part of the Sealed Knot, an English Civil War reenactment society. The smoke bombs were used by his dad to simulate the smoke from cannons. He was quickly suspended and then sent for private schooling, never seen a turnaround as quick. Apparently they are dangerous, and his dad had signed sogrugzing to say they were in a secure location. Not sogrugzing you should steal, smuggle into secondary school, and throw at the maths teacher because you forgot your homework. Story 23. She went to Austin on a bioengineering scholarship, graduated and got a nice intro lab job. She was unable to not talk smack to her lead researcher and has been unable to land a lab job since. That was nearly 10 years ago. No clue what she's up to now. Story 24. Sitting on railings. Just don't do it. I know one girl who I went to high school with who was sitting on someone's deck railing at a party. Fell backwards, broke her back, is in a wheelchair to this day. Another kid was sitting on the railing at a SkyTrain station, Vancouver's subway that is largely on elevated track. Fell backwards a full story onto concrete and died right in front of his girlfriend. Just 1 second, chatting happily to his loved one. The next second, he's gone. The next second, he's dead. It seems like such a dumb little thing, but it's so not worth it to sit on a railing. Story 25. Not the dumbest by any means. Most of the popular kids I went to school with are living their best lives now. I did go to school with a popular kid in the year above me who tried to break up an argument outside of the pub, punched to the ground, kicked repeatedly in the head like a football, never made it out of the coma. It made national headlines. More so because it involved drinkers and exposed a scandal of city center pubs not checking ID. Story 26. He got his GF pregnant. Pregnant GF dumped him and started dating his best friend. Shortly after giving birth, she got pregnant again. She dumped the BFF and goes back to Popular Kid. Popular Kid learned she was pregnant with BFF's child. He got into his car and parked on BFF's street. He waited for BFF to show up and shot him thrice. The GF was in the car with him and even gave him the gun. Beth survived, and Popular Kid and Crazy GF are currently in jail. It's in Canada, BTW. Story 27. He got hammered at 19 and rammed his car into a pole going 60-ish, flinging his body from the car and dying on impact. I hear our high school reunions are still very weird, as we had the one big reunion the year after graduation at his funeral. He was way cooler than me, but because the system sorted Janet and Apps by last name, we became friends from having so many classes we hated together. But he got on with everyone, and everyone showed up to say goodbye. Story 28. Got drunk at a party. There was a freshman that crashed the senior party, and he went after him with a broken beer bottle. He was charged, as an adult, with attempted manslaughter. This party happened the week before his 18th birthday. Was never seen at school again and had his football scholarship to college revoked. I only know when his birthday is because it is the day before mine. In elementary school, our class parties were often combined. Edit. I have no idea where this dude is now. I haven't spoken to anyone in my class since graduation. Story 29. My mom went to school with a popular kid who was dewy and crashed with another popular and generally more well-liked kid. The passenger was badly hurt, the driver only superficially. He didn't want to get caught, so left, leaving the passenger to die on the side of the road. It was later determined that he would have absolutely lived if the driver called 911. He was still alive for hours. Driver got caught anyway. I think he's out and still lives in the small town he grew up in, and it's a no one talks about it, but everyone knows kind of situation. He has no real social life BC of it. Story 30. Showing off for girls on a motorcycle and lost control of it, crashed, and his body flew 30 feet into the air and came slamming down on the hard sidewalk. Died instantly. He was 21. He landed and died in front of a church. Story 31. They partied too hard at a frat party and noted freshman year. Apparently, the people there just dumped all the unconscious people into a single room with no one keeping watch. I had no idea since I went to a different school and only found out after seeing a GoFundMe on Facebook. Story 32. Mom tried to leverage his social influence to get people in on it. Burned a lot of bridges, skipped town, and works at McDonald's. He wasn't a bad guy or anything, but I consider trying to get someone in a pyramid a hostile act. Story 33. Ducked a not-so-friendly guy's girlfriend, then proceeded to brag about it to that guy's friends at a party. Not-so-friendly guy beat him up. He was only 19. Story 34. He got crap-faced at a Halloween party and left with his best friend, the driver, also crap-faced in their 93 Mustang. This was early 00S. Went off the highway into a ravine, going probably way higher than the speed limit. Hit a rock outcropping. Best friend wasn't wearing seatbelt. Popular guy was. Airbags did not deploy. Best friend torpedoed through the steering wheel and out the window into the rock. Popular guy smashed his face into the dash, the part that ducked him up. Wait, that wasn't it, you ask. Best friend didn't die on impact. Popular guy dragged himself out of the car, up the ravine to the highway, and began waving his arms at cars until someone finally stopped and called the cops. That person who stopped, though, popular guy was wearing a realistic Halloween mask, as did the cops. It was not a mask. Best friend died at some point along here. His funeral was closed casket. Popular guy needed severe reconstructive surgery and spent the next 12 years in therapy. Didn't graduate high school. Did some time with addiction. Went religious. Went dead on social media. Ran into him during pandemic. Of all the things, I recognized his eyes above his mask at a store. Really quiet. Really anxious movements. We grabbed lunch a week later. Sober for 4 years. Went extremely ** religious when his therapist started breaking through. Had been living in an in-law at his parents' house working a crafty job. Went back and finished his HS diploma, then got his associates at a community college in business. Started a web design / webmaster consulting business from home. Got contracts courtesy of his dad's connections. Bought a house. Moved out. Will not drive a vehicle. Cannot ride front passenger in any vehicle. Gets shaky just being in a vehicle. Rides a bike as much as he can to where he needs to go, or his girlfriend drives while he's in the back seat. His voice, in a word, sounds haunted. Like just talking to him, you can tell that that memory is burned into his brain and it's constantly there. The heartbreaking thing here is that unlike most popular guys, this one was popular because he was a really nice guy. Football captain that did drama and computers back when that branded you a nerd, so he was an advocate for the little person. His face now actually looks pretty good. Like it doesn't look like it was basically rebuilt, just a little off. But yeah, that guy's entire life trajectory just shattered that day. Story 35. The most popular guy in our small-ass podunk town realized he was a nobody after high school, and for some reason decided that to gain back everyone's respect, that he would make everyone fear him by beating the boy at the local grocery store. Absolutely went to jail for it, and hopefully got his ass beat and more in jail. Guy was a huge banana with an insane inferiority complex. Edit. After looking up the news article, this git then decided to start his own breast CNCR awareness organization. And you'd think, oh, he turned his life around and is helping others. Ha 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 ha, duck. No, this git just wanted to be involved with saw groogzing that has to do with bubs. Story 36. He would pick on this kid with autism, and the school would look the other way. He was on his way to getting a football scholarship. Only the kid's uncle was with some kind of white supremacist biker gang, who showed up, broke his knee, and busted his head open with a bike chain when the popular kid was walking home with his friends. Because he couldn't participate in the sport due to how badly his knee was damaged. He could no longer receive the scholarship. Story 37. Back circa 2006, 07, when smartphones and sending nudes were relatively newish, a well-liked popular girl in her junior year had everything going for her. She was involved in practically every extracurricular, sport, cheerleading, etc. She wasn't a bully like the stereotypical popular trope, and actually talk to everyone. She even tried to get me to come out of my shell when I was a sophomore going through my goth phase. However, she sent a topless picture of herself to her boyfriend. The boyfriend sent it to all of his friends and said friends sent it to their friends. This was a small high school of about 400 students, so news spread like fire. She was humiliated, and her parents forced her to homeschool through her senior year. I never heard about what happened to her after that, but it was sad to see her fall from such a height. Also, considering the legal gray area surrounding minors sending other minors nudes at the time, I'm not sure if she or her boyfriend were ever prosecuted for distribution of CP or revenge porn. Story 38. Big football star, handsome, ladies' man at my school who would have gotten a sports scholarship took a crap on a teacher's car and got expelled. A year later, he was beat a fight and then ended up in jail shortly after. Story 39. Flashy, good-looking kid John, who was honestly quite talented at taekwondo, kept pushing and poking and bullying the quiet new kid who immigrated from Venezuela. After the immigrant kid Andre had enough and pushed back, John challenged him to a fight after school. The fight was over hilariously quickly. Tech D dude tried a flashy kick you'd see in a Van Damme movie, and it looked good but missed. Andre just easily dodged it, threw a right hook to the jaw, and then a left roundhouse kick to the face. John was out ducking cold, standing up. Later, we found out that Andre's dad was a former military police officer in Venezuela and a kickboxer of some repute, so he had taught his kid from an early age how to protect himself. Anyways, this happened in March, and we never saw John till graduation in the summer. He spent the rest of the school year being homeschooled. Story 40. When I was in high school, one of the most popular guys got a full-ride athletics scholarship to one of the main universities in our state. The weekend before he was to head off to college, he went out drinking with his friends. He got really drunk and decided to ride a pump jack, https://n.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/pumpjack. Like he was riding a bull at a rodeo. Well, he fell into the gears and lost one of his legs. No more scholarship for him. Story 41. He and some other guys wanted to go to spring break early. So they stole a car and some guns, shot some poor lady while trying to steal her car. After the first stolen car ran out of gas in Tennessee. Didn't make it very far. Then after spending many years behind bars, managed to escape with a convicted murderer, with only like 18 months left on his sentence. They were caught while raiding some old man's refrigerator a few days later. Guess what, he didn't get out on time. Apparently, they had been planning it for months. And despite me being one of his best friends, I hadn't a clue. Dude ducked his life for absolutely no reason, and it still breaks my heart a little, almost 30 years later. The lady survived BTW. Story 42. More like his body ducked up his life. Luke died of cancer. Luke was one of the best. Everyone liked him, and I'm saying that as one of the school nerds while he was a high school football star player. Genuine great guy all around. Story 43. Not dumb, actually one of the smartest people I've ever met, just not what we expected from him. He was absolutely brilliant and got shipped off to a special academy for genius kids for the last year or two of high school. The pressure broke him and he died homeless on the sidewalk in his early 38S edit to clarify since I typed this too quickly. The special school isn't what messed him up. It was the intense pressure on him to succeed. The man spent his life constantly being told he had to keep going further and try harder, and that he was going to change the world. That's a lot to put on someone, especially a kid. Story 44. Many years ago, got a full ride to West Point Military Academy. They even sent out a representative to our school to present to him at a ceremony in front of our class. Got 3 girls pregnant either before or during first year. Had to drop out. SMDH. 18 years. 18 years. She got one of your kids. Got you for 18 years. Story 45. Paralyzed during a football game his senior year. The rest? It's a mix. But none of them, that I'm aware of, really ducked up their lives. Some are doing very well. Some are just doing average. One average popular guy drowned trying to save someone else. Another ended up killing someone, but they weren't what I'd call popular. The most popular ones, pretty average now. Story 46. 2 groups of popular kids from my high school and a rival school ended up causing a tragedy that destroyed several lives. They had a bonfire party at a lake and tensions flared between the schools. At some point, someone pulled out a pistol, which caused everyone to panic and rush to their vehicles. In the chaos, several people jumped into the back of a pickup truck. The driver, impaired and trying to escape, attempted to pass a car by veering into oncoming traffic. In a desperate maneuver to avoid a head-on collision, the truck flipped. The accident was catastrophic. 3 people were die, and 8 others were critically injured, with many left in comas. A friend who witnessed the crash described it as horrific and overwhelming scene of chaos. The incident has become infamously known as the lake-named tragedy on that road. So yeah, not just one popular kid, but basically all of them from 2 schools ducked up each other's lives in one ducked up night. Don't drink and drive. Story 47. Lost a testicle in a barbed wire fence mishap and was forever known as Uniball Scott. Not sure if it ducked his life up, but high school sucked. I'm positive. Story 48. Summer after we graduated, we found out he had been beating the crap out of his girlfriend, who we were all cool with. Last I heard, he's dating a girl who is barely legal, and he's still selling illegal substances to the high school kids. Story 49. Not my school, but someone I knew. My first career was in road construction. This was in South Texas, and the crews were made up by a majority of immigrants from Mexico. I had this one white dude on my crew, a truck driver, and he had a weird story. He was a HSQB college recruit, committed to Baylor, popular, wealthy parents, the whole thing. Among other things, got drunk, wrapped his sports car around a tree, destroyed his leg to the extent that he had a permanent limp. Pain meds led to opiates and balanced those out with illegal substances. Dude was a mess. He had some wild stories, like essentially rustling his father's cattle to get money to buy illegal substances sort of stuff. He ended up marrying a counselor from rehab. I tried to keep him out of trouble, and things I learned from him eventually led to cleaning house and firing entire crews off other jobs because the company had become a traveling crime wave, moving from job site to job site. He came to me crying one day because they needed a truck driver on another site, and I was told to send him. He knew he would relapse because the entire crew were all tweakers. I didn't mention this was a family business, and I was family. What a ducking nightmare. I hope Steve is doing okay wherever he is. So glad to be out of that crap show. Family sucks sometimes. Story 50. Straight A student, multiple scholarships, decided to play lacrosse to become more athletic. Took a knee to the head in a game, and it rattled his brain. Never recovered mentally. Now works as a checker at a local grocery store. So sad. Nicest kid ever. Story 51. A girl my high school met up with her college boyfriend and decided to race him on a local road. She failed to make a turn and slammed into a tree. Unfortunately, the ambulance couldn't get here in time. Story 52. Went to jail for saugrugzing-like accessory, and parents got sued into oblivion. Rich kids playing gangster. Went with his friend to buy a couple pounds of illegal substance. What he didn't know was his friend wasn't going to pay for the illegal substance. His friend took out a tire iron and proceeded to beat the crap out of the supplier. What the two didn't know is that it was a local undercover cop. Cop sues the richer of the two families. Kid got out of jail a couple years ago. Parents moved him across the country because he kept getting women pregnant. I know his mom, and she turned into a zombie on pills. Story 53. Married an older man and had like 5 kids with him. Now she's severely unhappy. I know because sometimes I see her around town and she just looks absolutely miserable. Poor thing. Right after high school, I noticed the decline, and I used to take delight in it because she was also one of the girls that bullied me the most in high school. As a grown-up woman going through my own financial and marital, I now sympathize and pity her. Story 54. This guy was super confident and would party out, so when he was around 18, he had several girls in tow. But some years later, he was still that same teenager personality. But now in his 20s, the girls were no longer impressed. So he did what probably made sense to him. Started hitting on girls instead, buying them beer, and apparently had kex with one of them. When it came out, no one was super impressed, especially the judge. Story 55. One of the hockey players in my high school died when his girlfriend broke up with him. He loaded the gun with the wrong-sized ammo and ended up blowing the skin off one side of his head. I don't know what happened to him after high school, but he went from being a handsome guy to being a half-handsome guy. Story 56. For many of the guys is becoming alcoholics before 25 and having to pay child support for at least one child. For the ladies is getting pregnant with a one-night stand. Most of those scenarios are potential detective. Story 57. When I was in my first year of high school, hazing was still the norm. And yes, it started in high school. Usually you'd only get a bunch of upperclassmen cornering you to sing the Gaudeamus Igitur song. But 2 of the most popular guys in my school decided they'd single out 2 girls, make them stay after school for hazing. One of them brought her new boyfriend. The popular upperclassmen didn't like this. From what I remember, those 2 popular guys bound the girls and guy. And when the 3 first years panicked, it got nasty. The first year ended up beaten after trying to stand up to those 2. This ended up on national news with camera footage from the schoolyard. Yeah, those 2 were all brawn, no brain. Story 58. Small private college in Surrey. This guy was a Pat Tillman look-alike before we knew Pat Tillman. Even as a freshman, he was like 6'2" ow, looked 24 and muscled like a pro football player. Handsome and almost action figure toy hero, square-jawed, driving around campus and town with his Jeep Wrangler with no shirt on and chiseled abdominal muscles like saugrugzing out of an Abercrombie and Fitch ad. He'd gone to Cheshire Academy just a few miles away, and to be honest, he was generally a good guy. For reference, Cheshire Academy is where, like John C. Bigglesworth, the 3 types, send their boys to get them on the path to success. He was the campus Chad decades before the meme, of course. There was a popular restaurant bar a few miles down street that was serving alcohol to him and his buddies despite being under 21. They got in the Jeep after and drove past the campus on the twisty, windy back roads and lost control. The Jeep flipped and crashed. He was die, and his passenger survived right at the end of our junior year. Bad decisions. Didn't deserve it, of course. Story 59. The only one that comes to mind is a high school friend who had the looks and could have had any girl he wanted. Decided that gangbanging was the way to go. Got locked up only to be released early and then dies a year ago. Never hated the guy, I just know he made the wrong decisions in his life while in school. Story 60, based on my graduating class, illegal substances. I went to my 40th reunion of my class. 15 had died of overdoses, and I know of at least another 20 or so who went through a lot of rehab because of their addictions. Every single one of them thought they could handle it when they first took it up. Story 61. I don't know the full details, just what I found online using public records and a name search. She apparently developed extremely possessive and stalking behavior with her romantic partner, leading to her receiving a court order to not go near her ex or his pets at any point. She'd gotten in trouble for violating this order as well. She then made a LinkedIn profile in which her sole listed experience in history was the high school we attended over 20 years ago, with no title or position. So I'm guessing she's never actually worked. Story 62. Hosted a party at his parents' house with dozens invited, got everyone hyped up, chugged a beer in front of the crowd, and dove into the shallow end of his parents' pool. Story 63. He committed to a college far away from his GF, who decided to not go to college. He had a football scholarship. She panics that he's going so far away and tells him she's pregnant to get him to stay. He withdraws from the school, gives up his scholarship, and decides to stay local to be around for his future child. Later find out the GF lied to get him to stay, and his football prospects were all gone. There was no pregnancy. He's still in our hometown. Story 64. Was speeding and ran a four-way stop sign. They bulge a little bit in the middle, so he went airborne. Car drifted in the wind off to the side of the road and dug into the ground. Pipes that were laid on the side of the road to replace water lines lined up perfectly with the front bumper and made the car and everything inside of it Swiss cheese. Couldn't have happened to a bigger douche and his two best giant douche friends. There were two groups of people in the high school. People who hated that we got dragged into rallies about how sad it was and rallies about safe driving, and kids who honestly realized that we actually could die and it scared them so bad they couldn't stop crying anytime any of their names were brought up. Like I remember thinking to myself, why is she crying? He made her life a living hell for all of middle school and tried to light her hair on fire at that party last year. Story 65. Buddy of mine was pretty wild. Went on spring break, first week of March, to Cancun senior year, and he got into the marching powder pretty hard one night. Didn't make to the hotel. 3 months later, he's at the embassy calling his parents. Apparently, he went on quite the binge and was literally wearing rags and living on the streets when they came and got him. Story 66. Star QB of HS football team, #1 player in the state, would have been a contender for a major football school after 1 year at a smaller school to get GPA up. Over the summer, robbed a house. Sentenced to 30 years in prison instead. Story 67. The best soccer player I faced in high school got a full-ride scholarship to an Ivy League school. The summer before college, he got pulled over with 3 pounds of illegal substance, a bunch of cash, and an unregistered shotgun. I think his family might have had money, so chances are he did fine in life, but way to duck up a free ride to Ivy League. Story 68. 3 guys broke into the auditorium in the last couple months of senior year, connected one of their phones to a really expensive speaker and played some music. Because they didn't know how to properly use the equipment, they ended up damaging it somehow. All 3 got charged with vandalism for kicking the doors open and breaking the locks. The one that hooked his phone up was charged for property damage for the sound equipment. Had to pay thousands to the guy that owned the equipment because it wasn't the school's. It was his stuff that he carted back and forth between 3 different schools for performances. All 3 kids got suspended and lost their scholarships. They were also not able to graduate IRs, or at least if they did, they weren't allowed to participate at graduation. Story 69. I was friends with a girl in high school who won Miss Pennsylvania when we were seniors. She started doing scene to help her stay thin. She ended up getting busted when her boyfriend took her along to sell scene to an undercover cop. She lost her title and scholarship, and her parents threw her out. I drove through Hardee's a few years ago for a drink, and she was on the register. She recognized me, but I didn't know who she was. It was really sad to see what she had done to herself. Story 70. While in college, he was a bouncer at one of the nicer stripper clubs in the area. He escorted a few drunks out of the place for touching one of the girls. One of the guys was being mouthy and tried to get back into the club, and as a result, the bouncer and he got into a fist fight. The drunk ended up passing out and choked on his own vomit. I don't recall exactly, as I'd moved away from the area. He was left to lay in the parking lot to sleep it off. and was dead when he was found by some patrons as the club was closing for the night. The bouncer was found guilty of aggravated manslaughter and has saw grugzing else related to his actions and his indifference afterwards. He was from a well-off family, but they couldn't buy his way out of it. Story 71? So he wasn't popular in terms of the whole school, but he was treated like a legend by this friend group I used to party with in the years after high school. He was the guy who would bring the guitar every party and had everyone swarming around and hyping him up whenever he did it. I personally never liked the guy after I caught him trying to sell my buddy fake illegal substance and kicked him out of our house. Anyways, a few years after high school, he did his normal weekend partying and he woke up still pissed drunk and high to drive himself home and slammed into the back of a young couple on the freeway. At 95 miles per hour, he didn't have a scratch. The couple was apparently only a couple months away from their wedding date. He got 20 years and still occasionally has a family member post updates on his behalf to Facebook. Story 72. Maybe not ruin their lives, but made things weird. Keep in mind, this was in 208, 2010. So being gay was a much bigger deal. Two of the popular baseball players ducked each other and their GFS found out. Their defense was, "It's okay, baby. We didn't like it, so I'm not gay. We don't have to break up." Yeah, that didn't work. It was a big scandal because popular guys being gay in that time was just not heard of. Story 73. The most popular guy in our school got a full-ride scholarship for football, then posted a video of himself stealing from a convenience store for fun. It went viral. He got expelled, lost the scholarship, and ended up working at that same store. Story 74. Real popular guy, football player, pretty sure he nailed most of the pretty girls in high school. Could charm the teachers, never really got in trouble until his junior year. He was caught with enough substances for it to be obvious he was distributing. To save his ass from booty bandits and from a long stint, he ratted out most of his clients and a few people above him. I was already out of high school at this point, but I know for certain half the senior class was arrested. Dude went from being big man on campus to being the most hated man in the county overnight. He ended up getting killed. Even those who were his closest friends hated him and more or less said they'd kill him on sight if they ran across him. Obviously, this was before he was killed in an accident. Story 75. Super popular girl in a small town high school. She was the girl, and everyone wanted to be in her clique. Well, not me. For whatever reason, I rubbed her the wrong way and she tried to get everyone to bully me. Fortunately, I had a whole other set of friends in the city, and I moved there, which is where I saw her and her baby a year later. She looked wild to have been recognized. This was in the 80s. So I'm pretty sure she had been sent to live with an auntie somewhere more anonymous. Don't worry, Jane, I never judged you. Story 76. He purposely waited for the principal to walk by and called one of the black kids so grugzing racist. The principal was also black. I never saw her that pissed off before or since. Amazed all he got was a week of suspension. Story 77. Star high school running back. He blew his knee at an out-of-town game, so he started selling illegal substances on the side and living large. But selling it was a bad idea. And selling it to a cop was a worse one. And a new law said that 17-year-olds could do federal time. He was one of the first ones. William Steneforth Donahue. His grandfather rowed the boat over from Ireland, but Will made a bad decision or two. Yeah. Story 78. He is a very good basketball player. Seconds left on the game, and he chose to play hero ball rather than playing as a team, and he could have passed the ball, but he chose to shoot it and missed miserably. Ever since that day, he isn't the same player as he was before. Story 79. Not necessarily the most popular, but well-known, he and his twin brother were two of the smartest kids in our grade. One of them made valedictorian, the other made salutatorian. I forgot which was which. Anyway, the brother in question went to some fancy college. Not Harvard or anything like that, but still prestigious. Second semester, he got raided by the cops. Was running a grow operation out of his dorm room with his roommate. Evidently, it was pretty successful until that point. Story 80. Kid was in some super smart kid program in HS, IDK, what it was called, but they were taking AP classes as sophomores. Terrible program, really. These were turbo nerds who already struggled with socialization, and now they were competing with each other and doing homework till 2 a.m. daily. He got really obsessed with finding LSD, ended up getting caught with Sogrugzing, and was away for a couple weeks. Good news is, he went back to honors classes and seemed happy. No jail time, but probably probation or community service. I think it was obvious that he was a good kid with way too tight. Story 81. In the late 70s, the valedictorian and prom king at my high school blew off his full Ivy League scholarship to drop substances full-time. Actually got a job having illegal substances tested on him by some corporation. Became a burnout of comic proportions and never recovered. Story 82. Maybe not popular, but one of my brother's friends was caught with illegal substances at school. His parents kicked him out and refused to pay for college. Luckily, he cleaned up and joined the Navy to pay for college. Seems like it worked out for him. Story 83. Not the most popular, but he was well known. Dad owns a large construction company. They bought several of the family-owned businesses in our area, and are now the largest. 16 years ago, we were graduating high school. All he has to do was get his diploma, and his dad had the cushiest job waiting for him. He was basically set for life. 18th birthday, his dad bought him a new truck which was meant to be used for work after graduation. Giant V8, dual, exhaust, basically a semi. He got high off pills and plowed through a red light, hit 4 people with a car and got 4 life sentences. Story 84. We lived in a small town in a rural county that was named after one of his relatives that settled the area in the 1880s. Big fish in a small pond type of mentality, had everything handed to them in middle school/high school. Never sat the bench in whatever sport he played. Never really had to follow the same rules as everyone. Left the small town for the big city. Was promptly smacked in the face with the reality that he wasn't king anymore. So he moved back home. Story 85. Died after getting caught impregnating another girl. His main squeeze was the cheerleading captain and very popular. He was a senior. I was a junior. Story 86. Stockbroker trainee. Wanted to start a paintball business. Embezzled money from a client to start the business. Made lots of market bets to pay it off. Failed. Barred from the market, his dad had to pay it off and the fines, and lost his position as manager of the brokerage office for 2 years. And his paintball business failed. Story 87. 2 of our popular kids drove to a local bagel shop for coffee and bagels during study hall, 2 or 3 weeks before graduation. They got caught, not sure how, and having left school grounds, they weren't allowed to graduate and had to spend their summer at summer school. No idea if they were still able to go to their colleges or not. Story 88. Varsity football star decided to beat his girlfriend after a football game, a month before graduation. She survived. He was caught after a few weeks of running. Can't remember how long his sentence was. Story 89. Got into illegal substances and stole a bunch of veteran plaques from a local cemetery to scrap the brass for illegal substances. He went to prison, and now I see him around town occasionally still ducked up. Story 90. Got shot during an illegal substance deal gone wrong a year or 2 after graduation. Almost lost their arm. A few years later, they were arrested with an arsenal of weapons and pounds of fentanyl in their home. Prison for a long time. Story 91. Popular kid a year behind me in school got into a hard, illegal substance habit with no way to pay for it. Did a home invasion robbery of a campground owner he worked for over the summer. Owner started to wake up and he beat him with a bat in his own bed. Got nailed trying to pawn some of the items he stole. Evidence had him nailed dead to rights. Parents' money couldn't save him. Doing 25 to life with no chance of parole last I heard. Story 92. Sped out of the parking lot of the movie theater after watching the original Fast and Furious movie. He killed a person in the ensuing car accident. Convicted and spent 10-ish years in the penitentiary. I don't recall if it was another driver or his own passenger. Story 93. Brock Allen Turner, aka Alan Turner, was on the swimming team at Stanford University. He had kecks with unconscious student behind a dumpster. He had to move back home with his parents and has to register his address with the sheriff's office every 90 days for the rest of his life. Last I heard he was working in a factory making $12/har. Story 94. She tried to feed the Jewish kid bacon and socked him when he refused. Because it was high school and she was actually 18, she got sent to jail, but later got into even more trouble. She's in right now for aggravated assaulted. Story 95. One of the in crowd in my UK sixth form, 17/18 WADIO, was proud of his big banana and would get it out often. Decided to streak at a local swimming pool. Wasn't so funny when there were a class of kids in there having swimming lessons, got a record for exposing himself and was kicked out. Not sure what happened to him after. Story 96. My neighbor was the popular guy in school. He was ahead of me. He got a full ride scholarship to play football at Penn State. He made it 1 semester, started doing illegal substances and partying. They booted him. He died at age 50 from heart failure. Illegal substance addicted his whole life, barely scraping by. Story 97. Broke into the school and wrote foul words over everything and vandalized a bunch of school equipment. No mask or anything. Cameras all over the building. Never understood how he and his buddies thought they weren't going to get caught immediately. Story 98. Shot up a bank on a Wednesday that had no discernible connection to him. He didn't want money. He didn't know anyone. And he called his mom on the way to do it. Only thing I remember about that kid is that he had so many concussions during football wrestling that one time he had to wear a padded helmet. That's what they blamed his breakdown on. Story 99. I knew a man in a wheelchair, had been in it since he was 18 and was 40 when I knew him. Summer trip after graduating, him and some friends decided to go diving at a local small lake. He was a good-looking, really smart guy with his whole life ahead of him. But unfortunately that day, his life changed forever. Story 100. High school, illegal substances, college, abused someone, university. Was a manly man, and his girlfriend walked in on him sucking banana whilst getting ducked. Madness all round, really. Story 101. Him and his friend were playing with his dad's guns. There was an accident, and his friend died. It's unclear whether the friend accidentally shot himself or was shot. What is clear is that the popular kid turned the gun on himself presumably in a panic. He didn't die, but he'll never walk or talk again. Story 102. She wasn't exactly popular, but she was determined to be promiscuous. For fun. A couple of abortions, a couple of sties later, she married an older guy with a business and is now the unhappiest housewife ever. Done at 21, never held a job, never went anywhere, never did anything, just gave up. Story 103. A few months before we graduated, my senior year of high school, 5 of the most popular guys in school were all in truck driving drunk together late at night. They rolled the truck going highway speeds, basically, on country back roads. They all died. Story 104. He was driving, maybe drunk, wrapped his Iraqer Camaro around a tree and killed himself. He was a bully and an git. The world is better without him. Story 105. Parents got him a brand new expensive car right after he got his license and kept driving like an git to show off to everyone. Doing donuts, speeding, until one day he spun out at high speed and the passenger seat slammed into a tree, killing his best friend who was sitting there. Absolutely devastating. Story 106. Popular football player a few years ahead of me, freshman year of college, comes driving home solo for Thanksgiving break, approximately 2 5-hour drive, at night, drinking beer along the way. At the exit for his house, takes the ramp too fast and crashes. No seatbelt. Quadriplegic for life at age 18. Back was way above the approximately 1,986 limit. Story 107. His dad owned a car dealership he was due to take over. He was doing whippets in his truck while he was driving. Passed out. Drove through someone's backyard fence and flipped his truck upside down in a pool so nobody was able to open the doors to help him. Story 108. Driving down the highway on a crotch rocket senior year, popping wheelies in traffic. Lost control, hit a semi-truck and died. Guess that is about as ducked up as it can get, really.